It's Professor Homa. I'm back with part 2 of Kids in the Pond, or Holiday Card 2. And the last thing I did was, well, actually, while you were gone, or I worked on this a little bit and I silhouetted on the layer mask. I took away all this in-between part of their legs and everything. I took away that that was there, trying to make it look like they're kind of standing on the grass. And I don't know if it's working that well or not, but at least they're standing on grass. They're not walking on water or anything like that. One thing I'm going to do with this image, make sure on your layer palette you're not on the mask, because if you go on your mask and you go to mess with levels, if you go to image adjustments levels, it looks like this. There's nothing there. If you ever go in and it looks like there's nothing there, it's because you're on the mask. Okay, so what you want to do is go on the layer, and I'm going to go to image adjustments levels, and my levels probably look good. And when I say look good, these look good. There's a good range of darks, good range of lights. There's a lot of midtones in the middle. If I look at my image, there's highlights, there's a lot of darks, and actually there's a lot of darks in the clothes, and I'm not seeing a lot of detail. So that means this photo is probably a good candidate for shadows, highlights. So if I go to image, adjustments, shadows, highlights. Like when you want to use shadow highlights is if you have a lot of darks and there's not a lot of detail. And you need to pull out a little bit of detail that's in the shadow. So you can see what happened on this just by, this is after, this is before. Before, after. You see the difference. It's pulling out detail in their jeans and their pants and things like that. And 50 is usually too much by default. But here it's actually doing a pretty good job of brightening everything up. So, usually I'll go a little less than that, but that's probably pretty good. It's pulling out a lot of detail in their clothing and shadows and things like that. So, on a sunny day, on a bright sunny day when there's a lot of dark shadows, highlights could kind of bring this up a little bit. And actually when I did that, I could see I'm bringing up some artifacts of stuff that may have to be smoothed out a little bit on my layer mask. That doesn't look too smooth there. But for now, I'm not going to worry about that. And again, I did all that work on the layer mask. I didn't want you to sit there and watch me do it. Just as if we were in class, you wouldn't be watching me do it. You'd be working on your own. So, that takes some time, and it takes some editing and changing brushes and brush sizes and hardness and softness of brushes. So, that takes time to do that and to do it well. But anyway, this is my composite of the group shot and the background. And I used an image adjustment, and another image adjustment so I might use just a little bit. I'm going to go to image adjustments hue saturation. This one I like to use sometimes when there's some really harsh colors, and some of these colors of the coats and hats are a little harsh. They come off a little electric looking. So I can kind of tone them down a little bit by taking the if I take it down all the way, they're going to look black and white. And if I go up, you can see what it does. It makes it real saturated. So I'm just going to take it down a little bit, maybe like minus 20 might be nice, and I could hit before and after, and I can see it just takes a little bit of the glow off of some of those bright colors, and actually brings, there's before, there's after. It actually brings in a little more detail by taking the edge off of some of those real harsh colors. So I'm going to hit OK. So again, two things I used was shadows, highlights to pull some detail out of the shadows, and also hue saturation just to desaturate some of these really bright colors here. I didn't mess with levels at all because it's taken on a nice sunny day, and there's a lot of nice contrast and nice highlights and darks. So you don't always have to do anything with levels. I might even sharpen this a little bit. I might go to Filter, Sharpen, Unsharpen Mask. And like I mentioned before, I like to do somewhere between 50 and 100. If I put it up to 100, it might be a little too much. And you shouldn't see a big difference. You should just see a little more pop in their eyes and things like that. You could go in here and just look at a face and just kind of look at the before and after. If you hold your mouse down, that's before, and it just gives a little harder edge to some of these details and features. So I think 100 is going to be okay. Sharpens that up a little bit. And again, it's a 4x6 photo. It's not a real big photo. So that's good for that. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to throw some inset photos on here. We're going to make little photos that are going to go over here on this side of kids sitting in Santa's lap. And what we're going to do is we're going to paste them into a layer mask, and we're going to put a stroke on them that makes them look like a little photo frame and a little drop shadow. And that's it. And then we could copy those effects to other photos, and we can actually use those selections again. So that's going to be the next step. So rather than add it onto here, I'm going to do that in part 3.